Why did we ever stop hanging out?
Well, once you got that job at SNL, I didn't see a lot of you.
Yeah, I wasn't too social after that, huh?
Then I became a movie reviewer and I had to sit through that first film you made, Going Overboard, and...
I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Anyway, besides making crappy movies, what you been up to?
Remember how we said we were gonna kick ass and take names? You were gonna invent time travel, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I always did love Back to the Future. And you wanted to be what, an FBI agent or some stupid thing?
That's right. Mr. Falcone, our guidance counselor, said I was gonna end up working in the morgue.
Yeah, instead of hanging out with dead people, you co-star alongside actors with dead careers.
I guess old Mr. Falcone can suck my dick.
And when he's down there, he can lick my balls. Dude, I went to Universal Studios last week, too. Good times. But hey, man, I gotta know, how many more of these direct-to-Netflix films you gonna make anyway? Whoa, we'd better get started then, because this is Movie Night. Hi, I'm Jonathan Paula, and welcome to Movie Night. After taking a nice break from the show in May, I'm excited to be back reviewing some of the films I missed while I was away. So what do we have? The Ninja Turtles sequel, X-Men Apocalypse? Okay, well, I guess technically these count. Usually on this show, we'll review really great films or really bad ones, so I think it's time we showcase some of the mediocre movies by focusing on direct-to-video films. Let's begin with the oldest of this bunch, Shark Lake. Okay, let's be honest. The only reason anyone would watch a movie called Shark Lake with Dolph Lundgren on the poster is because they want to see Ivan Drago punch a shark. And while yes, the film's poorly lit and badly choreographed climax does have him getting hot and heavy with a bull shark, it just isn't satisfying. After struggling to watch the first 80 minutes, the final scene lands with a thud, or perhaps more appropriately, sinks like a rock. Released in October of 2015, this so-called horror thriller is the unrated debut from director Jerry Dugan. IMDb estimates the budget at $2 million, which I estimate went entirely to securing the aging action star, as this film looks cheaper than a bag of frozen Trump steaks. As for how much this independently released film made, even a single $3.99 on-demand rental is too much. Lundgren portrays an exotic animal exporter who inadvertently introduces a pregnant shark into a mountain lake 5 years before it begins chowing down on unsuspecting locals. It's a dumb, played-out formula we've seen a dozen times before. Even the absurd freshwater twist has been done in 1999's equally stupid Lake Placid. Plus, there's a secondary thread involving gangsters for some reason that just magically resolves itself with a throwaway line of dialogue at the end of the film. Obviously, this direct-to-video release isn't going to compete with Jaws, but I definitely expected something a little better than this. Let's start with the acting. Yuck. Just awful. People cry out in horror with no sincerity in their voice. Instead of fear, they elicit unintentional laughter. I've seen better performances in a Mentos commercial. Lundgren is honestly the best performer here by a long shot, and that's saying something. But frustratingly, he's MIA for a majority of the picture. Of his, and I'm being generous here, 20 minutes of screen time, half of it comes in the final scenes during his fishy face-off. The actual lead role is played by the much younger and beautiful Sarah Lane, who is completely unable to handle even the most simplistic dialogue, delivering it like she's never heard English spoken out loud before. There are low-budget movies, and then there's projects like this, with sets, effects, and stunts that give Birdemic a run for its money, or lack thereof. The shark is completely absent for the first half of the picture, and later only appears as cartoony CGI, poorly composited over a watery backdrop. The shots of it swimming look more like an after-dark screensaver than a motion picture. Never once do these creatures look like they're occupying the same space as our human protagonists, and the film is completely devoid of tension as a result. The sound effects may be even worse though. The film opens by featuring loud tire screeching during a chase, on a dirt road. Later, when a shark headbutts a boat and water starts pouring in, the resulting shot is laughably bad on multiple levels. The rushing liquid resembles a bad Photoshop blending mode, and it's completely silent. It's like the editor forgot to add one of the easiest sounds to Foley: rushing water. Just turn on a tap and add a microphone, dude. The gunfire, background music, and punches all sound incredibly fake and decidedly dubbed in post, too. I went into Shark Lake expecting a dumb but self-aware and amusing so bad it's good type movie. Not only does this picture take itself way too seriously, it is an utter disappointment by even those extremely low expectations, as the bland action and boring presentation prevent even film masochists like myself from finding ironic enjoyment from it. Shark Lake is a failure from top to bottom with zero redeeming qualities or moments, and a real garbage film. Next up, The Ridiculous Six. I didn't not like it, but there's just nothing really here. After being dropped by 3 major studios, this December 2015 release from Adam Sandler's Happy Madison Productions was picked up by Netflix and was the first in a 4-picture deal between the SNL alum and the internet streaming service. It seems to have worked out for everyone though, as the $60 million Western comedy quickly became the most watched film in Netflix history. Sandler portrays an outlaw raised by Native Americans who attempts to reunite with his 5 half-brothers to find their wayward father. The remainder of the titular group are portrayed by Terry Crews, Jorge Garcia, Taylor Lautner, Rob Schneider, and Luke Wilson. Director Frank Corsia does his best to keep the mammoth bunch of comedians and celebrities in check, but you begin to wonder if anything in the 2-hour picture was scripted. Virtually none of the sophomore jokes work, and the few, let's say more intelligent gags are pretty tame as well. Surprisingly well shot and edited, The Ridiculous Six actually works better as a dramatic western than an anachronistic comedy. There are some cool stunts and Old West imagery scattered throughout, and if it weren't for the dick jokes and decapitations, it might actually pass for average. Although entirely superfluous, a scene where John Turturro invites the 6 brothers to play a new sport called
Sticky McSchnickens
baseball is reasonably funny, as the always capable Turturro continually makes up new rules for the game as he finds himself in the losing end of the contest, each one a now familiar, if arbitrary, staple of America's pastime. The sequence works because it has a point, playfully lampooning the regulations of a major American sport by pointing out its idiosyncrasies. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the rest of the film.
Oh, God dang, I don't know, that was tight.
Yes, and tie goes to the runner.
Why's that?
Because those are the rules of Sticky McSchnickens. That's why. All right, it's all mine. I've got it. Oh, no, you can't run. You cannot run. Infield fly rule. In full effect. ¿Por qué no? You're out.
A good time waster to leave on in the background for sure. This outing isn't nearly as offensive as some earlier reports and controversies made it out to be. Now, I'm generally not a fan of Rotten Tomatoes, as its scoring metric is extremely misleading and often inaccurate. But even still, when a movie scores a rare 0% on their tomato meter like The Ridiculous Six did, you know you should probably avoid it. Neither good nor bad, this is one picture that remains just interesting enough to hold your attention, but not exciting enough to be memorable. I thought it was lame. Third up, a look at Get a Job. Despite the immensely impressive cast, it's obvious to see why this middling dramedy that deals with the challenges millennials face when searching for a job was shelved without a release for almost 4 years. Yep, although it was filmed back in 2012, long before either Miles Teller or Anna Kendrick rose to prominence, Get a Job remained unreleased until a limited VOD rollout in late March of 2016. Lamenting on poor job prospects, Teller admits, "I just need something to keep the lights on until I find my dream job." His snarky roommate quickly responds, "I don't think you can monetize masturbation." Directed by Dylan Kidd, the R-rated film actually features a decently impressive supporting cast. Christopher Mintz-Plasse, Marisha Gay Harden, Allison Brie, Bryan Cranston, Jorge Garcia, John C. McGinley, John Cho, Bruce Davidson, and Jay Farrow. Their performances are all solid, but the direction for the older adult characters is certainly curious, often portrayed as aggressively unrealistic caricatures.
Dad, what'd you do to your beard?
Well, I lost 2 jobs in a week to people in their 30s. So Cammie volunteered to make me look 10 years younger.
Gothic Raven, what do you think?
Yeah. Cammy, are you helping him out with his Twitter feed?
Oh, Raj doesn't need any help.
Yeah, I think Raj needs a little bit of help. My friend Jim lost his mother yesterday. LOL, Jim.
What? Lots of love.
Despite some gratuitous nudity from a strip club scene, the best way to describe this extremely short but still long-winded 82-minute feature is tame. It's never uninteresting, but it doesn't give us a reason to really care either. But hey, at least there's a scene where Kendrick is pantsless, so it's not a total waste of time. Cranston's effective arc and some light chuckles early in the script do help a bit though. All in all, not worth seeking out, but if you happen upon it by accident, it's a passable bit of fun. I thought Get a Job was meh. Next up, another ill-advised Dolph Lundgren vehicle, Kindergarten Cop 2. I couldn't tell you why this movie exists. In fact, I can't even tell you why I bothered to watch it. Released straight to video on May 17, 2016, this Dawn Michael Paul comedy is a sequel in name only. The predictable and breezy 100-minute film is just an updated retelling of the original, as it offers no continuation or even reference to Schwarzenegger's version. To that end, the plot is exactly the same. An FBI agent is tasked with going undercover as a kindergarten teacher to locate sensitive data hidden somewhere on campus. While I was disappointed his famous "it's not a tumor" line is absent, KC2 is packed with everything else. A therapy pig, bad Russian accents, finger paints, and the apparently irresistible sex god that is a 58-year-old Dolph Lundgren. Seriously, every woman in this film, and two dudes, can't help but eye-bang him every chance they get. He's surprisingly good in the titular role though, and his romantic courtship with Darla Taylor, a cute fellow teacher half his age, holds the PG-13 rated narrative together with some charming moments. There's a big Russian brood, a wisecracking African-American partner, and a loudmouth police chief too. It's like there was a 3-for-1 special at the Stereotype store. The kids, however, are genuinely amusing. The premise still works, and the pacing feels right. Seeing Dolph struggle with today's uber PC culture, that's very politically correct, not a computerized taxi, even delivers a few laughs.
Mr. Reed, I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah? Well, good for you. Yeah, go ahead.
I have to go really bad.
Okay, so go.
I want you to take me.
I'm not taking you, kid.
Most of the film doesn't work, however, from the played-out cliches and self-aware one-liners to its flat cinematography and bland action. Like an early sequence where a bad guy blurts out the Wilhelm scream when Dolph crushes him to death with a Twix vending machine. Nothing is offensively bad, thankfully, but it's all very routine. Younger viewers not old enough to remember the original will enjoy this film the most, if at all. Kindergarten Cop 2 may be completely unnecessary and pedestrian, but the experience is occasionally diverting. I thought it was meh. Finally tonight, a review of The Do-Over. A hodgepodge of bad ideas and familiar gags. The second in a 4-picture deal with Happy Madison Productions and distributor Netflix, this Stephen Brill action comedy was published on the streaming site on May 27, 2016. And for some reason, I decided to watch it 3 days later. I'm a glutton for punishment. What can I say? With the exception of 2006's surprisingly moving Click, I stopped enjoying Adam Sandler's tired and predictable movies as far back as Big Daddy. He relies on juvenile humor, slapstick gags, and misogynistic dialogue with alarming frequency. And predictably, The Do-Over contains all of that in ample doses. But for what it's worth, it doesn't feel nearly as mean-spirited as his more recent efforts. It is, however, completely aimless and convoluted. Sandler portrays an FBI agent who ostensibly kidnaps his old childhood friend, David Spade, so they can both fake their own deaths and start over. But then, surprise, it turns out he's not an FBI agent but a guidance counselor with police training. But surprise again, he also has some very particular ulterior motives that he had absolutely no reason to hide from his so-called best friend. This array of twists, turns, and reveals only serves to annoy and confuse. Thankfully, one such moment arrives just in time to put an end to a prolonged and very unfunny homosexual anal sex joke.
Hey! I'm gonna fucking kill you, Fishman!
What? Who are you?
You know who the fuck I am, and you know what you did!
No, I don't.
You tag-teamed my wife! Yeah, she told me all about you, you little snake delivery!
My snake delivery? That wasn't me, that was Jorge the shooter boy.
Get the fuck out of the pool.
No.
Get out!
I can't.
Get out of the
It's
fucking
not
pool!
a good idea.
Oh, you're not gonna come out? I'll come in there and break your fucking skull.
No, listen. Let's talk about this. Let's have a beer together.
Sandler not only seems oblivious to the lowest common denominator comedy he keeps shoveling out to the masses, but also disinterested. There's but a single moment of this film where it seems like he's actually trying to emote. In every other scene, it's obvious this is yet another high-budget excuse for him to hang out with his friends and attractive movie stars in some exotic location. Catherine Bell and Paula Patton in Puerto Rico this time around. The 108-minute film was just another one of his paid vacations. There are some fleeting moments of amusement, but never a full laugh, and while often confusing, the plot did have me somewhat intrigued as to what would happen next. Although competently filmed and produced to resemble a real motion picture, The Do-Over is a bloated, dumb, and pointless waste of a once talented cast. All that being said, I can think of at least 5 other Sandler pictures I liked even less than this one. So you've got that going for you, which is nice. Still, I thought it was lame. If you like these shorter, looser reviews, make sure to follow me on Letterboxd, where I log and even review every film I watch. Link, as always, in the description below. Unfortunately, that does it for tonight's episode, but here's what we'll be discussing next time if you'd like to leave a comment review. And if you click this information icon, you can watch some related content. Once again, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thanks for watching, and have a good movie night.